For a while now, the Volvo EX30 has been the most affordable Swedish car one could buy in India. However, in markets abroad, there has been a lower entry point for an electric Volvo since 2023. It's called the EX30. So, being a baby Swede, does it compromise on the Volvo experience? We are here in Jaipur to find out. What I've always liked about Volvo designs is that they never needed to be shouty. In fact, most of the designs are actually sleek, which has a certain bit of elegance. The EX30 continues that trend. And in fact, this EX30 is actually a ground-up EV, so you don't get an abrupt, closed-off grille-like feeling like, let's say, an EX40. It's quite smooth around here. The 19-inch wheels and wheel arches really fill up the proportions of this SUV nicely. Now you see these Thor Hammer LED DRLs. These are actually classic Volvos, but it's a modern twist in the EX30 as you get the rectangular elements all over here, which is actually something taken from the EX90. To really give it some SUV character, the fender really stands out, which flows into the wheel arch, almost bulging into the hood. Remember that Scandinavian minimalism that is famous for Volvo vehicles? Well, the EX30 also has it, but I feel like it has actually gone a step above. As you can see, there's almost no presence of physical controls, where everything is actually focused right at the center of this big 12.3-inch touchscreen infotainment system. And the materials around the cabin are filled with recyclable materials, and despite that, much of the fit and finish feels quite premium. Also, not to forget another classic Volvo trope, vertical AC vents all over. When it comes to the 12.3-inch touchscreen infotainment system, it is actually the largest touchscreen you get from a Volvo car in India, as it is larger than the XC90. In fact, it responds seamlessly while cycling through the menus. The not so fun part? Well, there's barely any physical controls and you have to rely on this screen for most of the car functions, right down to the ORVMs and the glove box. Although you can set a security pin for the glove box. Yes, the user interface has quick access to key car functions, but personally, I prefer some balance of physical controls, as over-reliance on the touchscreen for basic controls feels distracting. There's also an element of IKEA around here, as since a lot of the front speakers are actually around this bar here, you get a lot of door pocket space and you get an interesting cup holder sort of arrangement where you just like this, comes out, you get cup holder storage, you get extra storage right here. You get a wireless phone charging pad storage here, another one here. There's even pads underneath to keep the phone secure. There's more storage spaces here. In fact, the glove box is also not traditional. In fact, you need to open it through the touchscreen like this. And you can even set a special security pin so that in the case of a valet parking scenario and you want to protect your valuables, you can set a password for it. There's a hidden storage space here and you can also remove it to gain more storage space. All this complements the very usable 318-litre boot that can be expanded to 904 litres with the seats folded flat. As for the other niceties, you have Apple CarPlay, which is finally wireless. There's now a tire pressure monitoring system that now displays live pressure data rather than just numbers, a wireless phone charging pad, there's now an NFC card and digital key, a Harman Kardon sound system with decent audio quality, Scandinavian themed ambient lighting themes, a dual zone climate control, and an air purifier. Since this is a Volvo, I don't really need to wax lyrical on safety. Nevertheless, the EX30, which is a Euro NCAP 5-star rated EV, gets multiple airbags, a 360-degree camera, rain-sensing wipers, hill hold assist, as well as ADAS and auto parking. A disadvantage of this having compact proportion that at the rear, you can only see two average-sized adults perfectly. Having a third person is going to get really, really tight. That's not the only downside, as the under-thigh support is lacking. There's not much legroom or knee room, at my driving position. And as far as headroom is concerned, for me, it is fine. But anyone that's above 6 foot, it is going to get slightly cramped. Underneath the skin, the model which we have for India is a single motor rear-wheel drive setup, which makes about 272 horsepower and 373 Newton meters of torque, which is paired to a 69 kWh battery pack. Now, is this setup good enough for Indian roads? Let's find out. Now, before I get to the driving dynamics, I'd like to point out that this one doesn't have any driver instrument, unit at front, but you do get, the key-related driver information on the touchscreen infotainment system. It's great that Volvo has added that, but in my opinion, I feel driver instrumentation is a basic car feature that should be left untouched, and having something like that on the touchscreen infotainment system means it's a little bit distracting and it's a bit contradictory towards driver safety. 272 horses doesn't seem like ginormous numbers as far as electric vehicles are concerned, but for a car as with compact proportions such as the Volvo EX30, it's actually pretty decent. The power delivery is linear, it's predictable, and you can do your city cross or highway cruises with pretty much ease. And then as far as ride and handling is concerned, the steering, even at its firmest setting, it feels light yet precise. And you can, with a stiff setup, you can actually corner with some composure, and holds the line well. You can take on tight spots. While the Volvo EX30 handles corners in a fairly composed manner, the 19-inch wheels mean there's a fair bit of road noise. With the suspension set up on the stiffer side, the EX30 doesn't unsettle itself while tackling speed breakers or potholes, but it will get fairly noisy inside when you impact them past a certain speed. Trying out things like the lane change assist as well as adaptive cruise control, I feel like the sensitivity could have been dialed down a little for India, as interventions were at times sudden even at their lowest sensitivity settings. So, can the Volvo EX30 go the distance? Well, the WLTP claimed range stands at 480 km on a single charge, and I started my drive with a 95% charge and 383 km of range. Since there aren't any drive modes apart from a one pedal mode to maximize energy recovered during regenerative braking, I did about 100 km throughout the day, with 252 km left on the range counter. Taking all this into account, getting between 300 to 330 km on a single charge is realistic, which should be fine for city driving over a week, but not quite enough for serious long distance outstation trips. Overall, there are some good things and not so good things for the Volvo EX30. This electric SUV scores brownie points for its looks, the cabin's premium fit and finish, clever storage spaces, a decent amount of features, and a rear-wheel drive electric motor that does the job in a smooth and predictable manner. On the other hand, rear seat space isn't the greatest, too many controls are dependent on the touchscreen, the range will limit this to city driving, and it will get quite noisy over rough surfaces. So pricing will play a key role for the Volvo EX30 to be considered a decent option as an electric vehicle. What are your predictions on the pricing of the Volvo EX30, and if it is competitive enough, would you go for it? Let us know in the comment section down below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to Car India for more such content.